Hello. Welcome to another minuscule event. But I'm on one tonight. I mean, I'm very, very drunk. I'm very, very high. And I just wanted to get this off the chest. Now, hopefully, this video will never, ever be broadcast or sent to anyone. But I want to see it myself. So this is for my own amusement. I want to testify of what's happened to me. And actually, a lot of males in the Western world who've gone through the divorce course. My wife, right, we were together 14 years. We had 3 children together. We lost our eldest daughter to cancer. Molly died. Cancer. Neuroblastoma. And she died of cancer. It was awful. It was a whole year in the fucking ward, which my wife couldn't fucking do because, I don't like the light. So I had to sit in the fucking... I had to be there in the cot next to her bed as Molly slowly died. I watched all of her friends die as well, because Molly kept making friends with all the kids on the cancer ward, and they all died as well. So I got to live on a cancer ward for a year and watch all these kids die, and then my own. But my wife couldn't do it because, it was too much. It's too much. We had another child at the time, Jessica, who was 18 months, baby. So we did a fucking tit for tat, like relay race thing, where I would be in the hospital with Molly on her chemo meds and everything for 5-6 days, and then Katie would come in and give me a break, and I'd get a day at home, because you can't sleep in them places. The beeping cannulas and drips, and there's noises and screaming, and so I lived on a cancer ward. So Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham, E38, kids cancer ward, not a happy place. But I lived there for a year whilst my daughter died, and I slept in a cot by the side of my daughter's bed while she was being treated for neuroblastoma, which she didn't survive. She died. She was 4.5. Molly, beautiful, precious. She was my everything. And now my wife couldn't handle. She couldn't sleep on the ward. She couldn't do that. So I'd be sleeping on the ward, and she'd be at home with Jessica in the comfortable house that I built, and the garden I built, and the greenhouse, and the house I'd made. I installed the kitchen, I installed the bathroom, and I made a beautiful home. And then, unfortunately, my daughter was diagnosed with this terrible disease, and then I had to live in a cancer ward and watch all of these children die for a year. But my wife was, I can't go on there. You've got to do it, Carl, because you're strong. Yeah, I was strong, and I was strong enough, but it was fucking hard. So then I lived on that cancer ward for a year whilst my daughter, kidneys failed, her liver failed, her uterus failed, toxic chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and eventually they killed her. It took them a year to kill her. She was 4 when we went in there with neuroblastoma, and she died almost a year later. So I spent a year on a cancer ward. And Molly was such she was a wonderful human being. And she was egregious, and she made friends, and so she was making friends with all the other cancer kids. And then they'd die. So I got to spend a year on a cancer ward and saw all of her friends die. I didn't just see my own daughter die. I saw all of her friends die first. Isn't that lovely? We had an 18-month-old, our younger daughter, Jessica, but my wife, oh, I can't stand it on the ward. Oh, I can't sleep, Carly. I fucking did it. I did it all. Katie'd go every now and again, but I did it. Me and Molly, next to the block, all the chemo, all the treatments, everything. I lived and breathed a kids' cancer ward. I lived on a kids' cancer ward for a year. Sleeping on the floor, basically. You see, I never entertained the idea that Molly was going to die. I knew the statistics. I knew how unsurvivable neuroblastoma was. And when I Googled it, I went to the missus. We had a computer in a separate room, and I went to the missus and I said, look, right, once we got a diagnosis, I said, do you want to know the odds? She said, no, I don't want to know. I said, fair play, you don't want to know. But I knew. I did know. I knew it was like a 14% event-free survival at 5 years or something. It's basically a death sentence. Very rare cancer, neuroblastoma, in those days. So then we got into this year-long battle of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and I was in operations, and I lived on the cancer ward, and we were to and fro. My parents were really great, helped out, and with obviously having Jessica, who was 18 months at the time, it was difficult. I had to give up work, and it was difficult for Katie as well. My ex-wife's called Katie. So that was that, and she died. I had to hold my dead daughter in my arms, and I don't know if you've ever held your dead daughter in your arms. It's difficult. So I pick her up, and I had to put her arm over my shoulder. But she's dead. But put her arm over my shoulder, so felt like we were hugging. And then after about an hour after she died, they come into the room and said, right, well, you've got to go and register the death. I was like, are you fucking for real? These Macmillan nurses or whatever, we'd had stuff doing with them, but she's dead. I said, no, you got to go register the death. This is an hour after she died. So they dragged me over to Nottingham fucking registration centre. They said, you got to register the death. And I'm in a daze. My daughter's just died. And I never entertained the idea that she would die. In my mind, she was the 14% that was going to survive. Right? So I think the wife kind of thought it was a possibility that she would die, but I never entertained the possibility. In my mind, Molly was going to survive. She was going to be the one that survived. So when she died, it hit me like a train. I wasn't expecting it. In the way that the wife she'd kind of accustomed herself to it, but I didn't want to live in a world where such things could happen. So I hadn't even entertained the possibility that Molly was dying. In my mind, she was going to be the survivor. So right up until the moment of her death, I didn't think it could happen. So when it hit me quite hard, because I wasn't expecting it, because I didn't think such things could happen in the best of the most beautiful worlds. So then they drags me along and it says, right, you've got to go register the death. And I have to go register the death. And they says, right, okay, mother's name, father's occupation. And then the thing that stuck me, they dragged me out. I was in a daze, and they just walked me through the rooms, and they took me to this registration place in Nottingham. I said, right, like, so what's your profession? I said, I'm a gardener. I said, oh, a landscape gardener. No, I said, no, I'm not a landscape gardener, I'm a gardener. Landscape gardener. That's what was on their box. That was their title. I said, I'm not a fucking landscape gardener, I'm just a gardener. I look after plants. I don't fucking build driveways and paths. I'm not a landscaper, I'm a fucking gardener. I just look after plants. Tender plants. Tend to tender plants. And she wouldn't have it because it didn't fit her box, because the only option they had was landscape gardener. She said, oh, we'll put down landscape gardener. Like it sounded more grandiose. This is an hour after my daughter's died. And I'm in the registry office. And I don't know why it became a thing for me, but I'm just one of those guys. I can't fucking go along with the system. And she said, landscape gardener. I said, I'm not a fucking landscape gardener, I'm just a gardener. I garden. I look after plants. Landscape garden makes you think like you're building driveways and shit like oh, it's only got... Anyway, I don't know what it was. You'll have to look at the records. I'm sure someone can pull the records and find out what actually went down on her death certificate, but it was on the fucking day of her death. When I was taken from that hospital by these Macmillan nurses, I was left Katie with Molly in the room. Molly's dead. Katie's still hugging her. I'm hugging her. They drag me away. They take me to this fucking registry office. And I'm in a daze. I'm in this place. I was like, taxied there from these Macmillan nurses to take me. Like, you got to go do this. Why is it so fucking urgent? And I went along and did this. We had the argument over the fucking what's my profession? Am I a gardener or a landscape gardener? Just walked through days. Like, I've just lost my daughter, man. She was my firstborn. She was my precious. She was my everything. And I never expected her to die. So it whizzes me back to the hospital. When I get back to the hospital, Molly's gone. Go back in the room. Katie's there, and I said, where's Molly? She said, they've taken her. I said, what? They've taken her. Gone down the morgue. I'm fuming, absolutely fuming. How could you have done this to me? The precious last moments with my daughter, you ushered me away to go and register a death. And then when I came back, you'd removed her and I couldn't see her again. How dare you? It was despicable. So obviously, Katie's as distraught as I am. We go home, we've still got Jessica to look after. We've got an 18-month-old. And we were then in Zombieland for a little while. I was watching her because I thought she might top herself. She was watching me, thinking I might top myself. I was just in this kind of no man's limbo land for a little while. And well, I've never recovered, have I? I never will. This is if you're a parent who's lost a child, and every parent watching this who's been in a similar situation, if you've lost a child, you'll know exactly when I say this. You'll know the truth of which I speak. It never gets better, and it never goes away. And it hasn't till this day, and it never will.